And just on that, Dad, because you mentioned about him going off and then Taylor Gardner-Hickman going in. What a player Taylor Gardner-Hickman is. He can play anywhere.
Yeah.
His versatility and the way he can just slot himself into any part of the pitch and make it look like he's been playing there for years. He's borderline incredible. So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. And on Tuesday evening, Birmingham City beat Exeter City 2-1 in the EFL Trophy. Now, Birmingham had made 8 changes from the weekend and Exeter made 6. So it was always going to have a little bit of a disjointed feel to the game. But it was good to see some fringe players getting some minutes. And ultimately, Birmingham City progressed to the next round. So, Dad, you watched it. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, as always, ultimately we won the game, and that's the main thing. It's a cup. We're into the next round now, into the last 16, and there's a trip to Wembley at the end of it if you get there. So, I know a lot of people have got different opinions on the EFL Trophy, and you can tell by the attendances at all of the grounds that it's not that well supported, I suppose, by the fans. They don't see it as a priority. But having said that, you can only play the games, Chris Davies quote, only play the games in front of you, and if there's opponents there, then we beat them, or try to beat them, and we did.
We've seen it at our place, haven't we, Dad? Only the Cop is open, and then still the away end gets it. But
I think there was less than, was it 2,000?
It was, 600 of those were Blues fans, so it really was a low attendance. You could see it all over, couldn't you? There was pockets and empty seats.
Well, it's interesting you say 600 because the sold allocation of 1,300, but Exeter put a tweet on, didn't say that's how many people came through the turnstiles.
Yeah,
so I don't know where the other ones were, but anyway, it was a good game actually. Like you said, I think it gave an opportunity to play some of the fringe players. So let me just very briefly go through the team just to remind people who was in the team. So in goal we had Bailey Peacock-Farrell. Then we had Ethan Laird. At right back, Dan Sanderson and Ben Davis, centre halves, and lovely to see Lee Buchanan back again.
Yeah, it's in my notes.
Yeah,
top priority. See him back.
Really, really happy to see him back. We'll talk about his performance in a minute. In midfield, which was very interesting, we had Taylor Gardner-Hickman and Mark Leonard, which I thought was good. And then we had Keshi Anderson back after his suspension in the previous game on the right. Ami Yokoyama on the left, Luke Harrison number 10, and then starting with Yuki. At number 9. So it was a very changed team, as you said, but it was always going to be, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Because obviously we've got a really important league game coming up against Bristol Rovers, and it does give game time to some of these players that might not get that much.
Yeah, and as you say, one of the biggest things on my notes, Dad, is it's amazing to see Lee Buchanan back, and I saw a picture of him on social media interacting with the fans, giving a few high fives, and he seems like he's on his way back, which is great to see, especially now Cochrane's out injured. We haven't had an update on that, but it looks like now we're going to be a little bit weaker on that left-hand side. So really good to see him getting back.
Just on that, I don't know if you saw Chris Davis's post-match interview after the Exeter game, and he was asked about Cochrane and a few other players as well, and he said that he'd be out for a little while, but he didn't suggest it was anything too serious. Yeah. He said he'd be out for a while, but he didn't say it was. He didn't say like it was a muscle or or bone injury or anything like that. So or ligaments.
The responses we've had have been so aloof. There's no specifics. Is that it's been.
But the words Chris Davis used were he'll be out for a little while.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean to say he didn't say lengthy. So that I suppose it's good news really.
Yeah.
If he's not as serious as we thought.
It'd be nice to get a specific because of the amount of congestion we have over the Christmas period. It would be nice to get a bit more of a specific. But I'm sure they don't know yet. I'm sure they were still assessing and going through the motions, aren't they? So yeah, as I say, nice to see Buchanan back in the team. Obviously, Taylor Gardner-Hickman started at centre mid, but in the second half he went back to left back as well. What a versatile player he is. I'm sure we'll come back onto him in a minute. But yeah, I think overall, Dad, it was a controlled performance. I think we started the game well and we ended the game well. I think there was a part either side of half time and sort of the middle third of the game, which we kind of went off the ball a little bit. But overall, I think it was controlled, but it felt a little bit disjointed in parts, definitely. I feel like Exeter had a couple of chances. We had a couple of good chances as well. But I think ultimately we deserved to win that game. It was just a bit of a disjointed performance, wasn't it?
It was. They actually had more chances in the game than us. More shots on target, which is surprising because, as always, we dominated the possession. I think we had 64% possession, but they had the vast majority of the shots and the shots on target. But it was disjointed, but it always will be with the changeover of players. I mean, I don't really like calling them a second team because actually we've got a squad, haven't we? It's a squad of players, and it just happens to be that these players were selected to give the ones that are regularly starting at the moment a bit of a break. And it was disjointed. Yeah, I felt that we were a little bit laboured at the back at times as well. I think we lacked a little bit of pace at the back. I think that's why they had so many chances. They started playing long balls over, didn't they? Particularly in the second half. And we did come up short a few times where they just sort of were quite pacey wingers.
I mean, they missed a sit on about the 56th minute mark. I don't know
double-
how they missed that. I mean, a bit like Keshi Anderson in the first half. How did he miss that? Why did he take a touch on that change? There was 2 chances either side for both teams where you think, how on earth have they missed that?
Yeah, well, Keshi Anderson, right near the beginning of the game, is when their goalkeeper, they're playing it around at the back, weren't they? And their goalkeeper basically passed it directly to him. And like you said, if he hadn't taken a touch and put his foot through it, he couldn't have missed. But he tended to take a touch, and by that point, and then by the time he got his bearings, he'd shot it wide and high.
And that surprises me, Dad, because the instruction from Davies is press to score.
Yeah.
He says that a lot, so why would he think to take a touch? If you're pressing to score, put your laces through it.
Who knows? I mean, it's a spur of the moment thing, isn't it? I mean, you see it all the time, don't you? When players are obviously, there's a better option on. But it's a split-second decision, and I think obviously clearly made the wrong one. But you can't, maybe think in the future, if I get similar chances, I'm just going to shoot. But yeah, it's definitely a real big missed chance because that would have set us up really early on if that had gone in as well.
But thankfully, we did score.
Yeah.
Not too long after that, and again, it was Exeter's own doing, weren't it? I think with Exeter, you can see what they're trying to do, can't you? You know there is a football inside there, and that they have the idea, but the execution at the moment is very poor.
You know what they reminded me of when I watched them at the beginning of the game? They reminded me of us last season when Rooney came.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, definitely.
We were trying to do that, trying to play, and we were getting closed down, and the players didn't really want the ball, and they didn't know what they were doing. That's what Exeter looked like last night. We closed them down. Obviously, Luke Harrus eventually fell to Luke Harrus, and he planted it nicely. Just tapped the inside of the right hand post and then crept in. And that put us 1-0.
Nice finish.
Yeah. Well, one thing on that link to that, really, that was down to, again, our press. And something on my notes is that I was really impressed with throughout the game, really, the way we swarmed Exeter again and just closed them down. So we didn't give them much time on the ball. On occasions, there were occasions when they played the long ball. And that seems to be where we seem to struggle this season, don't it, with the long ball?
Yeah.
I think it's better now with the teams that Chris Davies is picking for the league matches. I think there's more of an understanding now, and obviously close the door with putting Bielek at right back, having Ben Davies and Clara in the middle. But I think that wasn't there last night, and I think we did get caught out a few times, didn't we, long balls?
I think sometimes we're responsible for our own undoing. Like the long balls, we need to be better at defending. This is League One. We're going to be hit with a lot of long balls, and even against Barnsley, I know someone commented in the set. I think it might be Richard Pincher said it was a calculated ball, and that is a fair comment. It was. But we still should be defending that significantly better, in my opinion. You can't get caught out, even if it is a good ball, that simply.
No.
And I feel like sometimes we're too sloppy as well. Like we make mistakes and allow teams. Like if we're just going to call it, last night, Laird, Sanderson and Luke Harris had real bad moments of just really sloppy passing. And again, it allowed them chances in. But their passing and moments of sloppiness, if we were playing a sharper team, if we were back in the Championship or playing a high-end League One team, they're going to punish you every single day.
That is often the difference between whether you win or lose games. Mistakes, because games hinge on those types of moments, and you got to stop them, and that's the problem. I agree with you. I think we were at the back, we were slightly sloppy on occasions, and it could be that some of these players are a little bit rusty, haven't had a lot of first-team football. I think Chris Davies was giving them a chance, really, wasn't it, to see what they could do. It did put us under pressure. We didn't need to be, really. We come on to that goal as well that they scored. Piers Sweeney, straight from a corner. Firstly, there's the argument that Bailey Peacock-Farrell was pushed. I think he was. It looked like he was bundled in, and why the referee. But you can't really say nowadays why the referee. This is League One level referees, and we've seen it all season so far. It was. I think it was a foul. I've looked at it a few times. It's quite hard because of the camera angles. There's nothing too close up. It looks to me, by all intents and purposes, one of their player has actually pushed him in. Well, it's interesting as well. Gary Caldwell, their manager, in his post-match interview, he didn't call it a foul. He says, we created chaos in their box.
Yeah.
So that's his justification.
So he's playing around with semantics about actually what he's basically admitting that was kind of a foul.
Yeah, he's admitting that was pretty much their tactics. So basically, he's literally took our goalkeeper into the thing. But then the counter argument to that is, well, why is our goalkeeper getting pushed around?
Shouldn't he be commanding his box? And also, shouldn't the defenders be backing him up a bit more?
This is my point. So why haven't we got a defender stopping the block to our goalkeeper? So we haven't got a couple of players that are actually protecting our goalkeeper, so that any players that come in, they can actually sort of. That's happened before that.
I'll never forget that when I was a kid. I was always a small kid, and when I was growing up, there was bigger kids than me. So I never really was an aerial threat in the box. In fact, 9 times out of 10, I was taking the corners. But when I wasn't and I was in the box, my instruction was stand on the keeper. That was my instruction as an attacking player. Yeah. But every single time there was a defender trying to push me off the keeper. Yeah. That's just the tricks of the trade. So if you get someone standing on Peacock-Farrell, a defender should be pushing him off him because the keeper's supposed to be more free. So, yeah.
I think it's a double-edged sword because I think a lot of people look, you see on social media, a lot of people have criticised Bailey Peacock for it. And he didn't cover himself in glory. And yes, he could have been stronger. But, he was left isolated by his own players and pushed by a defence. So actually, there are mitigating circumstances. And don't get me wrong, I think that he could have done better.
Should have been doing better.
But he didn't, and that made it 1-1. If I'm a goalkeeper and I concede from a corner, that's embarrassing.
100% straight in.
Because that's my job as a goalkeeper. My job is I'm the only person in that box that can handball it because that's what I'm allowed to do.
Yeah.
So
but if you are pushed quite aggressively and you literally are pushed into the back of the goal, there's also not a lot of. You have to rely on.
As a professional goalkeeper, right, you're going to know it's going to be physical in that area. So you've got to be stronger. You've got to be mentally prepared for it, and you've got to be telling your players, I want protection, and they should be practicing that. So because we know that teams have targeted us on corners and throw-ins and set pieces because we've been vulnerable, and that's another example there where I think you didn't really it's not just Bailey Peacock foul; it's the whole defence didn't crown themselves in glory, and that made it 1-1, and that gave them a foothold back into the game that before that they didn't even deserve.
It was frustrating,
and that just shows you how a game can turn just on silly moments.
And this is why, in the post-Barnsley video, Dad, I chose the term with Yuki, horses for courses, because against Barnsley, he was the perfect fit because it was windy, we were going direct. We needed someone to win our aerial battles. Yuki against Exeter didn't work last night.
No.
The midfield were looking for an outlet. They were looking for to play it to feet. They were looking for movement. And Yuki doesn't quite give you that. So in my opinion, I know what Chris Davies is doing. He's trying to give everyone a run out, but this is a professional football match. You want to play to win. In my opinion, Yuki was the wrong choice to start.
I agree. I completely agree. Now, Yuki works his socks off.
Right? 100%.
But the problem is to play that ball to feet. He ain't got the pace anymore.
No. Or technical ability to play the way Stano or May would play.
But if you do want to play a direct game, he's your target man. He's the person to pick, but not in that game. I agree. It's good to see him on the pitch. It's good to see him getting game time. But I felt that as well. I thought we were ineffective up front.
You could see the midfield were looking for an outlet, and he wasn't there. And we were a couple of times our attacks just came to nothing. I think because we didn't have that extra outlet of someone a bit more confident with the ball at their feet. Just an observation from the first half. That isn't a criticism of Yuki necessarily. It's just I noticed a difference that Yuki can be used in certain scenarios, but when you're playing a team like Exeter who play the ball on the ground, it's not the right game for him.
Yeah, and to be fair, I thought, until their goal, we should have been more than one up. We dominated the game, we played well, we pressed them, and then that gave them a window. And even after their goal, before half-time, they had 1 or 2 half chances as well. They started going long, and got caught out. But we did get into half-time at 1-1. And then the second half starts, and Sanderson tackled on the corner of the penalty area on 51, and gave away a silly free kick, which we didn't need to do. And as it happened, it went straight into the hands of Bailey Peacock Farrell. But it was a really dangerous position. Again, the point I'm making is not just about Sanderson, but any of our players in that area. Don't give silly free kicks away, because there are teams in our league. If that was a league game, they got players that can score from there.
Yeah.
As it happened, Exeter didn't make much of it. But, again, a silly mistake that didn't need to happen that resulted in quite a threatening goal scoring chance for them.
If I'm going to be brutally honest, Dad, here, and I'm not going to jump on a Dion Sanderson bandwagon, I'm not, but I am going to make an observation from the game. In my opinion, when Sanderson's playing now, it shows the quality we have in the defence.
Yeah.
I think he sticks out like a sore thumb because when you've got Ben Davies, Clara and Bielek at centre-half, I don't think he's cutting it to the level that those three provide us to. And I think last night against Exeter, it showed us that he's not quite, in my opinion, at the same level as those three centre-halves.
I feel for him because, as you know, I've always been a big fan of his. I've always been a Sanderson fan, but it did look like leggy at the back, and we got caught out a few times when, faster centre-backs or defenders would have given away silly things. But, may argue he's just a bit rusty. He's not getting enough game time. But, he needs to show Chris Davies a bit more to get more regular picks, I think. And he's got a lot of competition now, like you say. Yeah.
Sorry, Dad. By the way, before we get into the second half and thing, I just want to say I actually found it a really entertaining game. It was quite fun to watch. There was goals going in. There was disallowed goals. There were some big challenges. I thought, again, obviously we're Blues fans, so we watched it from a Blues perspective. But if you were a neutral, I felt like you'd have found that game quite entertaining. It was a decent game of football, wasn't it?
There was. It was at times it was end to end as well. Taylor Gardner-Hickman, he shot over the bar on 53 after some really, really good build-up play as well. And then that moment you talked about a little bit earlier, Exeter in the 58th minute, where I think it was Bird, their player Bird. He basically he was literally just on the 6-yard line and free, and he hit the ball first at Ben Davies and cleared it, and he came back to him, and then he went to Bailey Peacock-Farrell, and he. So he should have scored that, and that would have been 2-1 to them.
Put it anywhere, bar our players fit. Who cleared it off the line first? Ben Davies.
Ben Davies, yeah.
So I mean, you could have put it anywhere, bar where he put it, and he'd have probably scored.
Yeah,
he put it in the perfect position
he'll
for
be
him to
kicking
say,
himself, because he should have scored that. I mean, you're on the 6-yard line as well. The goal's open, really, and you got these defenders flying in. But anyway, thankfully.
But when that didn't go in, I felt like that was retribution for the Keshi Anderson miss. I felt like it was 1-1 at that point for bad misses.
Yeah.
But they should have been scoring that. They'll be kicking themselves.
And again, to look at the positive side, good defending. The fact that Ben Davies was there and Bailey Peacock-Farrell, retrieved himself by doing that as well. A couple of minutes later, Chris Davis makes some substitutions. He brings on Alfie May and Paik for Yuki and Buchanan. So let's talk about Buchanan now that he was substituted in the 60th minute. What do you think of his performance?
I thought he played quite well. I think he definitely looks like he's lacking a bit of match practice and a bit of fitness, isn't he? Like he put in a few stray challenges. He had a few sloppy passes. But overall, from a player who's been out for that amount of time, I think he did well.
I think so.
I think he just needs to get a bit more match practice under his belt. To be fair, he put in a few great challenges, didn't he? Again, in the classic Buchanan way that we're used to seeing. And in fact, before he went off in the second half, I think he just got a yellow for absolutely going through someone. Again, a pretty classic Buchanan state. So for me, clearly needs to get back to match fitness and match practice, but overall a good performance.
Yeah, and I think it was a good game to put him in. EFL Trophy. The timing was perfect. Because of Cochrane's injury against Barnsley, to have him available. I wonder if Chris Davis rushed him in, and he might have been saving him for a few more games. I thought, well, actually, we do need, and this is a good game for you to go into. But anyway, I was pleased with his performance.
He's good.
Showed some good quality, made some good challenges. Yeah, he made the odd mistake and stray ball, but if you've been out for 7 months since he started his last game, you've got a good excuse to say, well, I'm going to be a little bit rusty.
Of course.
And
just on that, Dad, because you mentioned about him going off and then Taylor Gardner-Hickman going in. What a player Taylor Gardner-Hickman is. He can play anywhere.
Yeah.
His versatility and the way he can just slot himself into any part of the pitch and make it look like he's been playing there for years. He's borderline incredible. I think that should be on one of the club's big priorities to get him on a full-time contract.
I think it should be immediately in January. As soon as January the 1st comes around, we need to sign him.
He's good, isn't he?
Because he can play in so many positions, and he's got like that edge, he's got that attitude, and also as well, he wants to stay as well. I was reading on social media today, he's saying he loves playing in front of the fans, and he loves it there, and he's closer to his home, and everything. He's more settled and everything. So I think if he can make it work, I'm sure the club will make that permanent.
I'd love to get him
because he's such a versatile player. So if we get injuries and he's available, we can just play. Can you play that?
Again, you're future-proofing. He's a championship level player as well, so he gets us ready if that day comes when we get promoted.
I'll be amazed if we don't make that permanent in January. Absolutely amazed.
I mean, is that if he's on loan for the remainder of the season, is it pretty common for teams to make a transfer request in the January, or would you normally do it when the loan expires in the summer?
It depends on the term. So, for example, they might not do it in January because they might have negotiated the original loan that they got an option to buy at the end of the loan.
I think they have.
So in that case, then they might think, well, there's no point in rushing. Then
just do it in the summer.
We've got the option to buy anyway. So but I would get him in as soon as possible.
In terms of the club's priorities, you'd put Taylor Gardner-Hickman as high up.
I think he's done. I think he's really impressed me. Every time he's come on, he's done well. He's not let down. He's got all the attitude that we actually want. Back to the game. 72 minutes. Anderson had the goal, but it was called for offside, and there was argument about it actually came off the Exeter player.
As an ex-referee, Dad, what were your thoughts on that game?
Well, I was an ex-referee, but I am an ex-referee, but I'm also a Blues fan, so I'm automatically going to say that it should be a goal. But actually, it's difficult because when you're doing or refereeing, part of your role is also for some games to be on the line as well, and that job on the line is really, really tough. So it depends on what the linesman sees, and because the referee clearly didn't see it. But if it does come off an opposing player, then it's supposed to be given as a goal, unless there's any other interfering players that can be brought into the equation. I thought that should have been a goal, in my opinion, but we don't get VAR, we don't get second chances, and we had to get on, didn't we?
It was a great finish as well.
Yeah.
What a goal that was.
It was a goal. But 5 minutes later, we got a goal anyway, and this was a great cross from Yokoyama from the right. And I think Chris Davis was saying he's been training and teaching Yokoyama to get as many crosses in as he can from his left and his right foot. And that's a good versatility about Yokoyama as well. put it on a really great place, and obviously Keshi Anderson was anticipating it. And again, he did it first time this time, didn't he? Because he tried to control that. He had a defender right on him, didn't he?
Yeah.
So that was a great. That made it 2-1.
Chris Davies he probably gave him a rollicking at half time. So as soon as that ball came over, he probably had it in his brain. I'm hitting this first time.
Yeah.
Because they're not scared of Chris Davies, but I've noticed in a few post-match interviews they do say, I didn't want to let the gaffer down and stuff like that. So I think they do really respect him. They do listen to him. And I'm sure at half time he was like, "What were you doing?" So I'm sure when that went in the air, I think coming back to Yakayama, I thought he had another good game. He's really dangerous, good balls in the box, and I know how this conversation is going to go. I really like Yakayama, and then you're going to say he's young. We need to be careful, and like there is a difference of perspective with Yakayama. But what I would like to see is to him, okay, maybe not a full-time starter yet, but more chance to have impact in games. So at the minute he's coming roughly about the 70, 75-minute mark. Maybe bring him on around the 50-minute mark. So we start letting him have more impact in games, because I think he's so dangerous. And as you say, he's crossing from the byline, he's crossing in from deep with his other foot. And I think he's becoming a right player, a right danger. He's causing teams loads of problems. And again, with him and Keshi Anderson last night, I thought they both had fantastic performances.
Yeah, I like Yakayama. I agree with you. And I know that in the past, in previous videos, I've said that I think he's a great player and he will be for the future for us. But my only thing about trying to play him too often is that he does lose the ball a lot as well, because he will do as a winger, because his job is to go around players. He is going to get tackled. It's just that, you bring him on at the times that you actually need him. And that, to me, is definitely an impact sub. And he will start EFL Trophy games.
Yeah.
But,
I agree, by the way. I don't think he should be starting. I mean, there's certain games when we've had a few injuries and suspensions where I feel like he's been the better option. But if we've got a fully fit squad, Yakayama is an impact sub. I'm just making the argument to bring him on slightly earlier in games so he can have a little bit more impact. So instead of 75 minutes, we knock it down to sort of 50, 60 minutes maybe. If we're a team's doing the low block, parking the bus, he really does give us a different outlet, doesn't he? So I think we're on the same page.
He's going to have more competition, though, because Hansen's not too far away from coming back. And obviously at the moment, we're starting Stansfield in that position. So it'd be interesting to see what happens moving forward. But it's all about the squad, isn't it? Yeah. 78th minute, so just after our goal, Chris Davies brings Bielek on for Laird. So I think he's trying to sort of keep us solid at the back. I thought that was a good sub as well.
Yeah.
And we sort of saw the game out. Like you said, they had one or two half chances, but Alfie May had a good shot, which we should have scored, really, in the 89th minute. That would have made it 3-1. That was just a breakaway and saved by the goalkeeper. Yeah. But 5 minutes of added time, I thought we sort of managed the game out pretty well. Mm-hmm. They did do obviously a lot of long balls in the latter parts of the game, but
they ultimately
all do, we won the game 2-1, and we're into the final 16 now. So the next round draw is just before the 12:30 game on Sky on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just quickly before the game, Dad, I thought Taylor Gardner-Hickman, Yakayama, Keshi Anderson and Mark Leonard all had really good games. Taylor Gardner-Hickman, for me, was man of the match just for his sort of diversity and fitting in. Keshi Anderson was man of the match. Keshi Anderson for his goals and his contribution. Then Taylor Gardner-Hickman probably just below him for his sort of versatility and stuff. Really good performances. And in my opinion, I thought Sanderson a bit sloppy, Laird was a bit sloppy, and Luke Harris as well had moments of ineffectiveness and sloppiness as well. But that's my overall sort of thoughts on the game. A bit disjointed. Overall, a quite entertaining game. Ultimately, what matters, Dad? We're through to the next round. We won 2-1.
Well, I just want special mention for Keshi Anderson. Look at his stats. He's it says he's played 17 games. He's got 5 goals and 6 assists. He's turning into a really, really important player for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, last season we had glimpses of this. He was injured a lot last season, so the season was disrupted. But this season he's really become so important for us. And what I like about him as well, he's one of the old guard. He was in the team that we had last season. And so he's one of the few survivors, and he's really, really taken his chance, and he's really, progressing as a player. So I think he's become now a real fan's favourite.
Agreed. I mean, look at him against Stockport in the last game, the last home game we played. He's absolutely incredible. It changed the game.
I like him as well because he's physical and all, and so he doesn't get pushed around.
He's a stocky player.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we need. So fair play to Keshi Anderson. But overall, like you said, Matt, the most important thing, it was a cup game. It's the EFL Trophy, and other fans of other clubs can say what they want. At the end of the day, no Birmingham City supporter is going to complain if we do get a day out at Wembley.
Absolutely.
And these are the games games that will potentially we have to win to get there. So fair play to the Blues, and again it keeps our win run going on as well, even though it's league. So is that 4 or 5 now on the bench?
5, I think.
Yeah. So
doing well. The momentum seems to be back, don't it?
Yeah. So 3 in the league and 2 cup in it. So we seem to have this winning mentality back. Let that continue. So So let's wait to see who we get in the next round, and then let's move on from there.
Brilliant. So, as always, Birmingham City supporters, we'd love to hear from you. So, please drop us a comment in the section below. As I said, myself and Dad will get round to all of those comments as soon as we possibly can. And if you like this video specifically, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and check us out on our social media channels. We have an X page, we have an Instagram page, and we're also on Spotify now as well. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to press that big red subscribe button and press the bell notification if you'd like as well. That means you get notified every time we do post a video. And myself and Dad will see you on the next video all about Birmingham City.